Hey, friends. Welcome to Dishing on Divorce on WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network Radio, Podcasts, and TV. I'm your host, Lisa Lisser, CEO and founder of LZL Coaching, a boutique coaching firm focused on divorce, relationships, and life transitions. I am also a divorced mom of 3 now grown kids, and I blend my past experience as an attorney with my training as a spiritual counselor and my personal experience of divorce to hold your soul as we build your divorce strategy. And we create a plan that's specific to you. Think of me as your guide on the side. Ultimately, my goal is to transform the divorce experience for everyone involved. So, when people are going through the divorce process, the divorce experience, their lives are turned upside down. Sometimes they want people to know what's going on, and sometimes they don't. Yet they feel they need to talk. And when they do, so often it feels like they're communicating clearly, but no one can hear them. No one gets what they're saying. And it's hard to communicate with your attorney when your emotions are all over the place and you don't really know your options and you don't know what questions you're supposed to ask. Or you feel like the one person who can help you evaluate the direction for your future and your present, you don't know who that person is to talk to. So my job as your divorce coach is to listen to you and be that person. My job is to really listen. And that's why I invited today's guest to the show. Today's guest is Erin Snow, a transformative listening strategist who turns the art of hearing into a powerful tool for personal and professional empowerment. As the founder of Seacoast Listening Lounge, she's pioneered a revolutionary approach that goes far beyond passive hearing. She's created a sanctuary where women can not just survive, but truly reclaim their narrative and their inner strength. With 16 years of frontline experience as a legal advocate for survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and stalking, Erin has witnessed firsthand the life-changing power of authentic, compassionate listening. She's a trailblazer. She made history as the first paralegal in New Hampshire to represent clients directly in family court. She broke down barriers and challenged traditional legal paradigms. Her unique background bridges the trauma-informed legal advocacy with deep emotional intelligence, giving her an unparalleled ability to create safe, transformative spaces for healing and growth. Welcome, Erin, to Dishing on Divorce.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm so happy to be here.
It's such a pleasure to have you. So our title of our show is I'm Listening, and what it means to be really heard. So let's start at the beginning. I always ask my guests, like, how did you get here? How did you get to this work? What's your story?
So, as you mentioned, I come from a legal background. I spent nearly 17 years working with low-income victims and survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and stalking in their family law cases. And in addition to the horrific abuse that they would tell me about, the thing that they shared in common with each other was like, Erin, no one's listening to me. I am talking, I'm telling my story, whether it's to friends or family or police or prosecutors, lawyers, like nobody is listening to me. I'm saying the words and it's like nothing is coming out. It's not making sense to anyone. It felt like for them, imagine New York City, like everybody is going around you and you're standing there on the street screaming and nobody sees you. They just keep going. And it's not having any kind of impact. And that really resonated with me. I am a survivor myself. I went through a divorce. I didn't tell anyone I was getting a divorce. I didn't tell my friends because I didn't want the judgment. I didn't want the opinions or the fixes or, oh, he's such a nice guy. I'm like, you don't know, like you don't know. And so I didn't want to deal with that. And it was, going into COVID. I didn't want to stress my family out. So I didn't have a space where I could just let it out and vent and talk. I didn't. And I thought, all right, well, I don't want therapy. I didn't feel like that's what I needed. I just needed this safe, quiet space where I could just be authentically me. And I couldn't find it. I couldn't find it. I looked. And so I'm remarried now. And I was on the beach last summer with my husband. And I said, I think I want to start this business where I listen to women and I just give them that space. And he's like, I don't know if that's a thing. And I said, well, I'm going to make it a thing. And so I did. And that's how Seacoast Listening Lounge was born.
Oh, that is amazing. I mean, and there's so much in your story. So I'm trying to think like where I want to start because, you got into the original work you did, probably knowing that something of your own life was in those stories.
Yeah.
And then you had your divorce experience and it was hard. And as I said in the intro, like sometimes we want to share, but sometimes we don't want to share because divorce is something that is full of shame.
Yeah.
And it's very private. And we don't need people to know our business. And sometimes the people who seem most interested, they're just being voyeuristic. And it's really hard. It's who do you trust?
Right.
So the concept of having a space that's a listening lounge, like that to me is, so powerful. Like, yes, you had an aha moment on the beach, but what did it look like to you at that moment? And what does it look like today?
Honestly, it just came into my brain while I was sitting on that beach. I had no concept other than I just want to listen. I'm trained in trauma-informed advocacy. I'm trained in empathetic listening, my own personal experiences. Like, I get this. I know what I need, which is, I don't need anyone talking back to me. I don't need the fixes. I knew what I needed. And I wanted to create that space. And so it was just this idea. And I just went for it. Like I was all in. I left my job, which was really difficult to do. I loved my job. But I left my job less than 2 months later. I got some space and I just, I thought initially, I'll just be totally honest. I thought, well, this is a no-brainer. I'm going to have like a ton of clients right away, right? Like we're in a loneliness epidemic. Like who doesn't want to be listened to? I seriously underestimated like the amount of education that would be required beyond regarding what I thought was a simple concept of I'm just listening. But people are like, wait, you just listen? Like that's a thing? Yeah. And I think we just don't know how much we need it. We just keep pushing it further down and we're like, I don't want to bother anyone with this, or it's not that big of a deal, or it's silly, or it's not going to matter to anyone else. And so I've done a lot of education around, self-care and self-empowerment, and that this is something that we all really need. I start every session with this question: how would you like me to listen to you today? Like I start every session and clients are like, what? Who asks that question? Well, I do. And we all should be asking that question because I think people mean well, but they're thinking about, all right, well, you're coming to me with this issue and you want a solution. You want me to help you. You want me to fix it. But we're assuming that. We're not asking that. So I've learned a lot, with all the clients that I've worked with, and every client is different. Like every person needs something different that I see. And that's why I always ask that. So what started as this maybe crazy idea on the beach has just developed into this like beautiful space where I'm just so honored to be part of the story, to be part of the journey, and that it really is unique to that individual and that they feel like a lot of people come to this space, but it's their space. It's still their space. So,
yeah. Well, creating safe spaces is huge, especially in divorce, because in divorce, what you might have hoped would be your safe space, which is your home, it might not be safe.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
what you imagined, your family is supposed to be your safe space, but everybody has a different opinion about divorce and a
Yeah.
different relationship to the idea of divorce and different
Mhm.
fears related to divorce. So
Mhm.
so it's hard to be able to like vent, as people say, and who is the right person to vent to.
Yeah.
And one thing I learned when we spoke is that you can be that person because you have no stake in it,
Mhm.
but you have the skills to be a compassionate listener and to acknowledge that you actually are hearing that person.
Mhm. Mhm. Yes, it's that validation that their voice matters, their story matters, that there's value. Because especially in abusive situations, they've been in some ways taught for so long, like, you don't have value, you don't matter, no one's going to hear your voice. So having this kind of awakening, like, wait, what? Like, I do have a voice and it matters and it's going to make a difference. And whatever they decide to do with that, even if just the realization alone is just so huge. And it's just in 60 minutes, just being able to see the transformation from how they felt when they first came in to how they feel when they leave is just, I'm here for it to witness it, but it's really about them and just seeing that they have that own awareness. It's incredible. And it's so special.
So I'm so sure it is. And when you say special, it makes me think of a gift, right? Like gifts are special when they're the right gift, when it's the gift that you need or want.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to, for a long time, I would find something that I liked and I would buy that for the person because, like, if I think it's great, they must think it's great.
Mm-hmm.
And then I learned that I need to buy it based on what I think they would like, not on what I think I would like.
Mm-hmm.
That's what listening is about, is like
Yeah.
listening to what you know about that person
Mm-hmm.
and using that to give them validation
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because that's how they know you see them. And I think that on the yes, they need to be heard, but they also need to be seen.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. Um, and I think that looks different for every person because, people will say to me, so you just listen. Yes, I do just listen. But it's more than that. It's just creating this space where you can just, what is it, what do you want it to look like? I'm listening. And some people, that's what they want. They don't want anything back other than you being a witness to what their experience has been or is continuing to be. Other people say, and that's a gift to be able to give that space to somebody. But other people, the gift for them is, I need you to talk back to me. I need you to give me feedback. I need you to be in this moment with me, talking with
Mhm.
me, processing with me. And I will do that too. But it is certainly not, I always ask. And it's very directed by the client. Like, what is it that you need? What is it that you want in this moment? What do you want it to look like? And I can pivot to give them that.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
It's so interesting. I have a friend who we were in a group of women. I was teaching a class, but one person was sort of like sharing this thing in her life, and everybody was trying to solve. And this woman said, "Okay, before we try to solve, what do you need? Do you need an ear, a hug, or a fix?"
Mm.
And that was really powerful to me to be in that
Yeah.
space
Yeah. I love
because
that.
yeah,
Mhm.
because we need different things. Sometimes we just need someone to be there so we can say what we have to say.
Mhm.
Sometimes we want them to hold us
Mhm.
because they've seen us and not fix us and not
Mhm.
tell us what to do next.
Mhm.
Sometimes we do want the guidance on
Mhm.
what we do next. And so that might be finding the right person to give them the guidance. Like, I hear you say this is your concern.
Mhm.
Do I have that right?
Mhm.
Just getting confirmation on that. And
Mhm.
then saying, okay, so how can I best serve you here? in
Mhm.
getting you the support you need.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a similar to kind of this motto that I follow too, which there was a gentleman who he was a speaker at a conference I went to a number of years ago, and told the story about what had happened to him as a child. And the kind of overarching lesson that came out of that was this idea of love first, teach second. And
Hmm.
I don't know how often we practice that. I think our go-to is to the teach first and love second. I mean, if you think about it, I example, a little kid, goes and grabs like a hot pan off of the stove and burns their hand, and you're like, grab their hand back, and why would you touch that? Why would you do that? You can't do that, it's hot. And then of course you're running it underwater, rather than like, oh my gosh, are you okay? Like, what, you have to teach the don't touch the hot stove. And here's why we don't touch the hot stove or the pan. But it's like addressing the emotional and the hurt piece, or whatever it is that's going on first, and then we can offer that if that's what people want and need.
Right. Like, so what you're saying is you don't need discipline first, you need compassion first
Yeah.
in
Mm-hmm.
that case, in that
Yeah.
scenario.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's amazing. So we're about halfway through. So we're going to take a little 30-second break, and then we will be back with Erin Snow, founder of Seacoast Listening Lounge. And we're back with Erin Snow, founder of Seacoast Listening Lounge. So, first off, why don't you tell my audience where you're from and where they could find this Seacoast Listening Lounge?
Yeah,
And
great. Go ahead, sorry.
oh, and it's,
Okay, I interrupted, that's bad.
that's okay. That's okay because you've got the energy to keep going. That's why. No, because what you have created is so unique. I'm wondering if there's other spaces out there, and for people who aren't in your general vicinity, how we can really help them. Although that should be at the end, but I still want people to know where you are.
Yeah, so I'm located in Hampton, New Hampshire. It's on the seacoast, about an hour north of Boston, just for reference. But the really great thing is that I'm also virtual. So I go anywhere, travel anywhere. You go, I go, which is
Amazing.
great. So I can do things over the phone. I do things through video meetings, video sessions. So if you're not local to Seacoast, New Hampshire, then you can still absolutely tap into this service.
Fantastic. That's amazing. So thank you for sharing that. That's huge. So I want to go back a little bit to this question: how do you want to be listened to today? And you said when you asked that question, people are like, wait, what? What are you talking about? Like, how do you explain to them that you're here to receive whatever they want and however they want it?
Mm-hmm. So I explain it as really I see really two options. The first option is I can engage in empathetic listening, which I will do anyway, but they're like, well, what does that mean? I don't know what empathetic listening means. That's usually the eye contact, the nodding of the head, the mm-hms, and just being here and being silent and not providing any feedback, not commenting. And so that's really option one. Option number two is they want it to be more conversational. They want to know, do you want me to interject? Do you want me to ask questions? Do you want me to relay back to you what I think I've heard you say? Do you want me to kind of share in these emotions with you? And once they understand that, they're like, oh, well, that makes like total sense. Then what I have loved, it has been like one of the coolest things in doing this work, is how directive they are. They're like, okay, for the first 15 minutes, I want you to just be here with me, nod, make sure I know that you're present and you're engaged, but I don't want you to say anything. And then at the end of 15 minutes, I want you to let me know when 15 minutes is up. And then I want to switch to more of a conversation. I want to know what you're thinking. It's like, I don't know if I would have done that. I get nervous sometimes when I go to doctors, and I know you have to be like such a good advocate for yourself, but I'm like, okay. And I'm thinking in my head, I should probably say something, or do I want this to look different? But I really let them dictate how the appointment's going to go. But here
Yeah.
it's like, I give them options and they're like, this is what I want you to do. And I'm like, great. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be great. There's a weird thing below, Cece. Phil Bradley, I don't know Phil, but we're with Erin Snow of the Seacoast Listening Lounge. Let me ask you another question. So, you know, both of us are divorced women. You said part of this came out of your experience with your own divorce. And
Yeah.
how would you say your own divorce shaped this idea behind the Seacoast Listening Lounge?
So I would say it was really my post-divorce.
Okay.
My divorce actually itself wasn't, we were divorced in 3 days. So people are like, wait, what?
Whoa.
I put everything together because, we were not going to get attorneys involved. And, so I drafted documents and we went back and forth and we were both comfortable. We filed on a Friday. We were divorced by Monday. That was fabulous, right? Like fabulous. But then life happens after that. And it doesn't just end with the divorce all the time, especially if you have kids. And it was, new partners and new life issues come up, and then you're not on the same page. And it was super frustrating to have to go through that. And like, who am I going to talk to? I couldn't talk to my friends. I pretty much lost my friends in the divorce
Yeah.
because a lot of them didn't believe in divorce, and I didn't tell them everything that was going on. So they thought I was the bad guy. And so I lost a lot of friends. And it's almost kind of like if one person gets divorced, you don't want to be around them because then it's like an epidemic. Like one person gets the idea and then, oh no, what if other people get the idea?
Yeah.
So that was really difficult. And so I didn't have anyone to really talk to about what was going on. And I find too that when somebody has an attorney, the attorney has a job to do, as I'm sure you know, and their job is to handle the legal issue. But it's divorce, and there's a lot of emotions that come up. And something that might seem kind of inconsequential to the divorce attorney, like their client is spinning and like, they're calling them up and they're like so mad and like, please call me back. Why aren't you picking up my phone? And it's just this spiral. And I was like, you know what? Somebody needs to help the divorce attorneys because, they need to be able to focus on the legal issues. Someone
Right.
needs to help the client because what they're experiencing is real. And someone needs to help them not rack up the legal bills, because you're calling the lawyer for something that for you is really important. But for the lawyer, it's like, I don't need to know this right now.
Right. Like what I find with some of my clients is that they come to me after they've sent the 3-page email to their
Mhm,
client, to the lawyer. And I always say, please help me help you. Help me share the email with me first. Because when I read a 3-page email, I can't make sense of what they actually want the lawyer to do. And if I can't make sense of it, how can the lawyer who
mhm.
bills at a much higher rate and who then I always say to them, look, he's going to look at it, try to read it, but then pass it to his associate, who's going to look at it and try to read it and pass it to the
Mhm,
paralegal, who's going to
mhm,
maybe give you a call and say, in 2 weeks, the lawyer can talk to you.
mhm,
So, and now 3 people have touched it. You've gotten bills from 3 people's time. And had you and I sat down with this exact email,
mhm,
work together because I would read it. I would listen to you about what's most important. And we would find the 4 or 5 bullet points. that
Mm-hmm.
you answer from your lawyer. Like
Yes.
sometimes you're just telling your lawyer stuff because you want them to understand.
Mm-hmm.
But they deal with a lot of divorce. They understand,
Yeah.
but they don't need to know all the details because that is also not their job.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
And
think too, sometimes you want your lawyer, they're on your side, but they're paid to be on your side. Like you retained them. And
yeah,
yes, you hope that they are actually on your side. And I'm sure that they are. But it's like you want them to be like as mad as you are at your ex. And when they're not, you're like, I don't get it. Why aren't you mad? Why isn't this like, why aren't you enraged? I feel ridiculous now. You're not even on my side. You don't believe me. And it just sets it off. And it just, that needs to go somewhere. That 100%, all of those feelings are completely valid, but they need to go somewhere where they can be heard in a way that is meaningful for you in that moment.
yeah, exactly. And that's why I'm so intrigued by the listening lounge, because it's really unique. And you're not giving advice,
Mhm,
you're reflecting back. And
mhm,
so it's not coaching, but it is that space in between that helps a client get to a space where they could start thinking more strategically.
right,
And
right.
and because someone has listened to them, and then if someone else is listening to them, maybe they start listening to themselves,
Mhm, mhm. Yeah,
right?
I've seen those aha moments where so a lot of times people will come in and they are talking about something that they've never either said out loud to anyone else or even into an empty room like in your shower or whatever. They haven't said it out loud and they're saying it out loud for the first time and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't realize I felt this way about this," or "Oh my gosh, I didn't realize it was having that kind of impact." And they're like, "I know what to do next." Or
Right.
even if they're not like, "I don't know what to do next," they say, "I understand the issue," or I know what's going on now. It's so it's just incredible to watch that own kind of enlightened moment of, I heard it. I heard it come out of my mouth, and somebody who is like, I don't know if I'm in an abusive relationship, and then they start talking about all the things that their spouse has said to them, like all the nasty names, all the put downs, and they're saying it out loud and they're explaining it, and then they look at me and they're like, "That's bad." Like, that's not okay. And walking in, they hadn't gotten there because they'd never said it out loud, either to someone else
Yeah,
or in a room by themselves. They'd never heard it.
that's so powerful, because so much of our lives is guided by our self-talk that's inside our head, and the
Mhm,
inner critic that's like, "Oh, that happened, but it's not that bad."
mhm,
Or other people deal with harder things.
mhm,
And so we have this way of diminishing the things that are happening to us. And some people have a way of expanding them and making it only about them.
mhm,
But
mhm,
what we're talking about here is giving people a space to actually use words that they may not have used before, because for the first time, they actually believe someone is listening.
mm, mhm,
And then they have the courage to actually listen to themselves,
mhm.
right? It's
Exactly. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
so, and it takes courage to walk into your space, because sometimes you don't want to say it out loud because that makes it real,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know?
Mhm. I've had, I mean, and it can run all across the board. Like I've had people who just want to, they're curious. And so they come in and they're like, "I'm not really sure what I want to talk about today." And that's okay. It's very different from therapy where you're like, I have this very specific thing and I really need like a solution or a
Right.
diagnosis. It's not like that. And they'll sit down and then they're like, "So this thing happened." And they're like, "Oh my gosh." At the end, they're like, like I hadn't thought about this in years. And maybe that's what's kind of been holding me back. But they didn't allow themselves the time. I mean, that time is the other thing. It's like people are like, I don't have time for that. I don't have time to do something for myself. But I've had people come in who weren't really sure. They were just curious. I've had people who come in with a very specific thing that they want to talk about. And they really just need to let it out. And then they're like, that feels so much better. Like, I'm relieved. Relieved is one of the common words I hear at the end of a session. Like, how are you feeling now? I feel relieved. I feel lighter and I feel relieved.
Right.
But yeah, it's like, I never know. I have zero expectations other than creating a space where people can feel safe and know that this is confidential and that whatever comes up for them is what I'm here for. So I don't have any expectations beyond that, but it's just really wonderful to see people kind of, have these moments where they're like, I had no idea. I didn't get this before, but I get it now.
Right. Right. Like they don't know what's holding them back until they actually start articulating
Mm-hmm.
what's going
Mm-hmm.
on.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's a scary process,
Mm-hmm.
but you make it so calm and safe at the listening lounge that you've created something that doesn't really exist in the real world. Like people think that they may find it at their therapist, but maybe not. Maybe in the therapist, you're just retelling the same stories you've always been telling.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Maybe at the lawyer, you're telling them the story that you want them to know.
Mm-hmm.
And and then in this space, you're sharing a story that's going to the heart of things.
Mm-hmm.
Because you, Erin, you don't have a stake in the process.
Right.
You're
Yeah.
just a third eye.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, it completely removes that element of it because you're right. I think we put on these masks of how we want to show up, how we show up as a mom to our kids, how we show up to our partner, how we show up to our lawyer, how we show up to our doctors, how we show up to our therapists. Like everyone needs to see kind of the version that we think they need to see of us. And there are very few spaces where you can let that guard down. And like I had one woman say to me, she's like, I don't think I'm allowed to say this. I'm like, you can say it. Go. Sure you can. And she's like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, great. That's great. And how does that feel? And but yeah, I just think that that's so true, Lisa, is that we are putting these versions of ourselves out there because society tells us we should do this. We feel like, especially if we're in the middle of a divorce and we don't want to come across as the crazy person, we can't let that stuff out because if we do, it could hurt your case. You have to be careful who you talk to and what you post and everything. You're under a microscope for potentially years.
yeah,
And so there are not a lot of people where you can be your true authentic self. So people start going, well, who is that? I don't even know who that is anymore. When was the last time I was that person? And so this gives you a little bit of a glimpse into that person, getting back to who is the authentic you. Because
yeah,
I don't have a stake other than to be here and to practice empathy and be with you. But beyond that, like
yeah.
I'm
You
just
yeah. You're just the witness. You're just the witness. You're the,
exactly.
in some of the spiritual counseling work that I have done, we talk about the difference between role and soul.
Mm,
So many spaces in our lives, we like step into the role that we believe we're supposed to play, and we confuse that with our identity. We think that that role is who we are, but it's just a job at a certain moment in time. And our soul is underneath all of it, but it gets buried.
mm-hmm,
And so what I see in Imagine in your space, it's an opportunity to take off the layers of roles. Because how many different roles do we have? As a client, that's one role. As a co-parent, it's another role. As an employee, it's a third role. As an employer, it's a fourth role. As a spouse, all of these different roles as a sibling or a daughter. Like we
Mhm.
have a different role in all of these spaces in our lives. And underneath it, the common thread is that soul that's trying to speak, but it feels smothered.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
your space like gives breath to the soul so that people can feel heard. Amazing.
I love the way that you just phrased that. That was really beautiful and so spot on.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad. But you inspired me, and I really appreciate you being here. We're at the end of the podcast,
That
so
went by so
I know
fast.
it's so fast. So tell my audience, how can they find you?
Sure. The best way, go visit my website, check it out. I offer free 10-minute consultations. So if you are curious, just book that. Let's have a conversation, see if this would be a good fit for you. So seacoastlisteninglounge.com is a really great resource. You can email me at Erin, ERIN, at seacoastlisteninglounge.com. My number is on my website. You can call that, text that. Follow me on Instagram. Got some pretty funny reels up there, Seacoast Listening Lounge.
Okay,
You'll
great.
find me.
Great. I'm so glad because I think so many of us need what you offer. And if you can do it on Zoom or on the phone, then you're available to everyone, which
Mhm.
is amazing. It's
Yeah,
really wonderful. Like this is power work. So thank you.
thank you.
Thank you for like imagining it on the beach. And so much happens on the seacoast, right?
You never know.
Right.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great. Thank you, Lisa.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And for my audience, if you need to find me, you can always email me, Lisa at lzlcoaching.com, or just go to my website, lzlcoaching.com. I offer free 30-minute consults, and you can book it right through the website. So with that, thank you for joining us on Dishing on Divorce, and we'll see you next time.